Good afternoon. Welcome to the Tinkerville University Center. If you haven't been here before, we dedicated the building on Sunday, August 24th, and from that evening forward, the place has been jammed, and we are loving it. We have 89,000 square feet of ballrooms and meeting rooms and centers, and a flourishing food court, which includes Melt for those of you in the know. We have an interactive media wall and incredibly comfortable chairs. They were tested in advance by our students last year. We have an amphitheater on one side and the gorgeous green expanse that is Freiburger Field on the other. And if you were here that Sunday night, you know we had a terrific concert with OK Go, and it was a lot of fun. And we had fireworks and confetti and beach balls and all kinds of things. So I think it's fair to say that already this space is exceeding expectations, and I am delighted that we are here to open the 2014-15 Power of Diversity lecture series. As many of you know, diversity was a core value of our 2008 strategic plan, and we reaffirmed that in our 2013 strategic plan. In the meantime, we've done a few things, including we named our first ever Vice President for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equal Opportunity. More about her in a moment. We improved the proportion of underrepresented minority students in our classes. We continue to look closely at how we recruit and retain faculty. We do reasonably well in recruiting, but we don't do so well in retention, a huge challenge for us. When I think about diversity and inclusion, I sometimes like to mention the Sanskrit phrase, I can see myself in all things and in all people around me. Part of building a truly inclusive community is making sure that all of you, all of us, can see ourselves in our campus, in our people, and in our programs. In order to do that, it's so important that we listen to each other, get to know each other, learn about each other's experiences and perspectives. We have much more work to do in creating that truly inclusive climate. But one of the great advantages of programs like today's is the opportunity to bring to our campus someone who can help us work on diversity and inclusion. We can and do have important conversations among ourselves, but sometimes an outside perspective is just the catalyst required to create new insights and momentum. It gives us the opportunity to think about concepts in new ways, to reflect on commonalities and differences, to consider ways these previously unfamiliar approaches might become part of our diversity work. Today, as we listen and talk, as we engage with our speaker, we have the opportunity to reflect on the strengths and the shortcomings of what we already do, and that is an essential element of reaching our goal of building that truly inclusive community. And we also have an opportunity to think about and talk about some new ideas to create the climate we want. Within this context, our appearance today by Li-Meng Hua could not be more timely. It is my great pleasure now to introduce our Vice President for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equal Opportunity, Dr. Marilyn Mobley. I am so proud of the leadership she brings to our campus every day. Many of the programs she's initiated here, like Train the Champion, have been award-winning. And she continues to look for new ways to enhance our campus climate. So this year, we launched with her leadership Diversity 360 and Sustained Dialogue, among other new initiatives. As the creator of the Power of Diversity series, which continues to contribute so much to our campus community, she is the perfect person to introduce today's speaker. Now, Dr. Marilyn Sanders Mobley.
Thank you, President Snyder, and I'm so glad to see all of you here this afternoon. We've already had some wonderful conversations with Le Manoir, and I'm looking forward to the conversation we're about to have tonight. Many of you have heard me say sometimes that diversity is this nation's unfinished business, and I think the evidence of the unfinished business is every now and then we have a flashpoint. For many of us, the death of Michael Moore was a flashpoint. For some of us, Trayvon Martin was a flashpoint, and we could name several flashpoints. What I appreciate with Le Manoir's work is he's aware of these flashpoints and he's aware of this ongoing work. So I'm delighted to bring him to our campus today because he understands what many of us have talked about, how diversity is several identities and it's about the intersection of multiple identities. So I think you're going to hear that today. His films and teachings have had a significant impact on diversity and inclusion work and has served as a catalyst, as President Snyder just said, for many difficult but also necessary conversations in the classroom as well as within corporate and various agencies. He has been involved in diversity work for more than 25 years, and his films have explored a number of critical race and diversity-related issues. His work is known internationally, and he is a renowned documentary filmmaker. Some of us know his film Color of Fear, which is how I got introduced to him, and so I'm pleased that he may be mentioning that as well today. That film, Color of Fear, explored racism and race issues through the eyes of 8 men from diverse backgrounds. Le Manoir also directed and produced the film Last Chance for Eden, a 3-part documentary on sexism and racism. His films have won numerous awards, and Oprah Winfrey once highlighted his life and work during a 1-hour television special. I hate I missed that. His most recent works include his book entitled Let's Get Real, and I believe we have copies of it. I don't know. Are there copies of the book in the back? Well, we'll find out. Never mind. Don't worry about it. His latest film is If These Halls Could Talk, which we screened on campus in this room yesterday as an open screening. There's going to be another one tonight, and then he's going to do a workshop with faculty, administrators, and staff tomorrow in this room. That film, If These Halls Could Talk, will undoubtedly spark conversations and increase awareness about a number of race and diversity issues that exist on college campuses around the country. The film features 11 college students from various schools who discuss their own personal experiences related to race and talk about racism and diversity on college campuses. And what we appreciate about the film is it also addresses issues of gender, and members of the LGBT community will also hear the ways it addresses LGBT issues. It is a wonderful, insightful film that is at times very raw and very emotional. We hosted that screening to a room full, and as I said, tonight at 7:30 will be another screening for it. He truly believes, and I think his work reflects this belief, that we as a country cannot continue to be separate and unequal without there being tremendous cost to each and every generation. He believes our survival and the future of current and future generations depends on all of us embracing our differences as we embrace our mutuality. And I appreciated in the conversation we just had with President Snyder, she said we need to have these kinds of conversations. So we're excited that he's here. Please join me in welcoming Le Manoir.
So, what is your name?
Denise.
Thank you. And your name? Say it again.
Sarayut?
Sarit. Could you tell me what was it like when I walked around like that?
Quiet.
What? Quiet. Very observant. What was it like for you? This cool looking guy over here, what is your name?
Imani.
What was it like for you when I walked around like that?
Serene.
Serene. What was serene about it?
Just nice to sit in the quiet. I was looking forward to seeing what you were going to do first.
Yeah. So you got to see it, huh? Yeah. And what was it like for you? And what was it like for you? I met you earlier. Your name again is?
Randy?
Oh, still Randy. So, Randy, what was it like for you when I walked around the room?
Sense of purpose and presence.
Sense of purpose and presence. Ooh, I didn't know I was so profound. And what was it like for you? And what was it like for you? And this gentleman over here. Your name is?
Mark.
Hey, Mark. So, Mark, what was it like for you?
When I've seen the film, I would say anxiety, tension of the unknown.
Ooh.
Colors there before.
So here's the tension of the unknown when I walk around. Ooh, one more. That's subliminal. You know, those Asians, they're subliminal, you know. Okay. So some of you who believe in social justice and gender issues and things like that, raise your hand. Okay. Now, what I'd like to ask you is, what did you notice when I went around the room? What did you notice? Some people looked away. What else did you notice? What did you appreciate about what I did when I walked around? Looking at the whole aisle when I was walking. What did you appreciate when I walked around? Engaging individuals. How many of you noticed I was engaging different folks? Raise your hand. How many of you appreciated that? You better say that, huh? So what if I told you that for the past 7 minutes, I have been purposefully and consciously practicing sexism? So by a raise of hands, please raise your hand if you noticed the sexism I did. Ooh, there's a lot of pissed off women right now. So those people who did notice that I was being sexist, please stand. The rest of you are going, I didn't notice anything. So let's find out. Let's start with you. Your name is?
Brianni.
Brianni, what was one thing you noticed that I did was sexist?
Oh, I'm standing for noticing?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh. All right, so take a look at the people who did notice. And your name is?
Fatima?
Fatima, what is one thing you saw me do that was sexist?
I felt that.
Okay, well, it's quite a mouthful. A previous powerful dynamic, and I hugged. Who did I hug?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I wasn't when you went around.
Uh-huh. But I didn't do that to anyone else, did I?
I wasn't looking at you.
Oh, you weren't looking at me, then how did you know? What else? You assumed. What did I do that was obviously sexist? Yes, your name is? Yes. What did I? Go ahead. I did not look at a single woman who talked to me. I purposely walked away from every single woman who said something. Please raise your hand if you did not notice that. Even the vice president of diversity. Ah, so then you needed to turn, huh? Which oftentimes we don't because we're in rows. What else did I do that was sexist? Yes. Oh, your name again is? Samantha. What did I do with sexist? All right, I shook his hand, I didn't shake yours. What else did I do that was sexist? Yes. I asked every single, I made a mistake with hers, so I caught myself, but every single woman, I did not once ever ask them their names. Please raise your hand if you did not notice that. Wow. What else did then, hence, every man, what did I do? I asked them what? If I didn't ask any woman their name, what did I do with the men? Every single man, I asked their name. I did not ask a single woman. What else did I do that was sexist? Yes. Every single man was given a microphone. No woman was even, I decided to even be more obvious for you. Please raise your hand if you did not even notice that no woman was given the microphone. What else did I do that was sexist? Yes. Anybody else have one that I did that you did not, that you noticed? Anyone else? Yes. Right. I commented on anything a man, even walking up to them, commenting on what they said. Every single woman, I didn't even say a single thing about what they said. Please raise your hand if you did not see that. Boy, you sure do need diversity training here at Case. You see, ladies and gentlemen, I did it so obviously, and yet it was so subtle, you didn't see it. But actually, it's much deeper than that. For those that did see me do it, why didn't you say something to me? For all you folks that are standing, why didn't you say, oh, Mr. Lee, we thought you were a diversity trainer. Look at what you're doing. Why didn't you say something to me? We just met, right? So it's not that we were strangers. Why didn't you say something? Your first name again is?
Travis.
Travis, why didn't you say something to me?
I didn't want to interrupt.
You didn't want to interrupt me. Ooh, why else do you think? Yeah. Why don't you stand so we can hear you? And your name is?
My name is Peggy.
Hey, Peggy.
Peggy Fitzgerald.
Hey, Peggy Fitzgerald.
Peggy Fitzgerald. Anyway.
This is not the David Letterman show. Okay.
No.
So what?
Actually, when you started to walk around, I was trying to figure out what's he doing. And I didn't know what was going on quite. So that's why I didn't say anything. I just didn't know.
What I'd like to propose to you. Okay.
I'm a teacher too. And when you started walking around, I thought, what's this guy going to do? You know? And so I was kind of curious, but I didn't catch on to it. So
Yeah.
that's why I didn't say anything.
Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, you're coming to a diversity workshop. I do something totally different, and you're suspicious.
Not suspicious.
Curious. How many of you were expecting me to talk up front? Raise your hand. Oh, and work on those PowerPoints. But ladies and gentlemen, what I want you to hear also here is that discrimination is such that when it happens, it surprises you. Sometimes it shocks you. And maybe in some cases, it's like, what's new? But when it happens, sometimes you're watching it going on. How many of you know what I'm talking? And going, oh my God, here it is. And by the time you're ready to say something, the moment has passed. Raise your hand if you know exactly what I'm talking about. And people wonder why you haven't said anything. It's when that congressman said to the President of the United States at the State of the Union message, you lie. And not even John L. Lewis, who walked next to Martin Luther King, not even he said something. Because you see, I could guarantee you, he probably went like this. and all over America for a $1,000 certificate. Please tell me, when that congressman yelled out to the President of the United States for the first time in the history of this country, "You lie," what did the President of the United States say back? For a $1,000 certificate. And only raise your hand if you know. Ladies and gentlemen, not one person in America, since I've asked that question, has an answer to it, except this woman here. So don't guess. Would you please stand? What did he say? No. You see, ladies and gentlemen, even when the President of the United States was confronted with that, even he did not know as a black man. What he said was, "I did not." For the next 32 minutes, he read his State of the Union message, and not a single person in America remembers what he said. And as he read his speech for 32 minutes to the man who said it to him, he was sitting there tweeting on his cell phone and laughing. How many of you believe it was probably one of the hardest moments of his life as he continued? Raise your hand. And when we saw him going through that, how many of you wrote a letter to President Barack Obama to share with him how you felt about what happened? How many of you have a sense of what it felt like? Raise your hand, because it happens in your life. Please stand. Okay, I actually want to continue getting the impetus of this to keep going. So the question I want to ask you as we're doing this is, what kept you from saying something when I was sexist? What kept you from doing it? Not that I think you should have done it. What I meant is, what kept you from saying something? Yes.
I think it's, I notice it, number one, because I'm just.
A fear of raise your hand if you had a little fear of confrontation. Anybody else? What kept you from saying something to me? Yes. Uh-huh. Right. Good. Please raise your hand if that was also going on for you. Not that you're a first-year student. Good, so you never maybe even see it. What might be other reasons why you didn't say something? Yes. Right. By the way, that's exactly what discrimination is. Am I seeing what am I seeing? Is it real? Did it really happen? And suddenly your reality gets turned upside down. Yes. You're looking for someone else to say something? Really good. I would like to propose to you that one woman said something which I thought was so perfect. She said, "What's new?" What's new? Yes.
The lesson had begun.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, later on, we're going to be able to remember is that we just don't leave this. But what do you think has begun? Would be a great question, huh? Maybe perhaps today I did this exercise so that you could see it happens every day, and I was extremely obvious, and yet you still couldn't see it. How many of you believe that racism, sexism, and homophobia, and classism, and sexual orientation issues are alive and well here at Case Western? How many of you believe in what a world that is diverse where everyone is valued? Please raise your hand. Now take a look at who you're sitting next to. The rest of you can have a seat for a moment. Now what I'd like you to take a good look at, if there's anybody who you didn't know. Notice if you put one seat between you and them or more. And then to make sure they don't sit down, you start to pile up things there. And then we all hope that somehow the world that is outside of our own will go like this. Hi, I'd like to get to know you. Isn't that silly? And you're hoping somehow that maybe with a film today that it will change your life. The truth of it is, ladies and gentlemen, we had the national conversation on race and not one single person talked to each other, just to a panel. Ferguson decided to have a dialogue on race, and they talked to a panel. The truth of it is, ladies and gentlemen, that diversity requires this. It requires sitting down and having a relationship. It requires moving one seat over. It requires noticing who you're scared to sit next to. You will never see the rest of the world sitting where you are. I do not believe that this room is multicultural. I think it's multiracial. Multicultural means that you value my culture, you know about my culture, and it becomes part of your life too, and you value it. It is not enough to celebrate it, tolerate culture, or to eat it, wear it, dance to it. That's not knowing someone. That's the fun part. The real part is when you and I talk about how our worlds are different and how it affects both of us. How your life could be very different from mine. And how you may play a part of my oppression and I may play a part of yours. And to women and to gays and to people who are poor and to people who are immigrants in this country, how our lives are different. When we talk about that, when we talk about what happens in Ferguson is happening every single hour. When we begin to talk about, as one woman said to me, every single 20 minutes, a woman is died, beaten, raped, abused by a friend or an acquaintance or a boyfriend, and every single day, Ms. Manoir, it is in the newspaper, and do you notice that? And I said, no. And that was 18 and a half years ago. And she was right, because every single day it's been in the newspaper when I read it. And the question I asked myself is, why didn't I read it? Why didn't I cry? Why wasn't I moved to action when I saw it? The world out there is in here. And you will never be able to get to it if we don't move over one seat. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do a keynote unlike you have ever seen. I'm going to do one without words. Everybody please stand. Everybody on this side, take a look at all your friends over here. Everybody on this side, take a look at all your friends over here. By the way, I did notice you raised your hand, just to let you know. Now, take a good look at each other. I want you to look at your classrooms. I want you to, when you go out in the world today to work, I want you to take a look at the administration, the staff, the people that are at this college, and every single day from this day on, I want you to notice who is here and who is not here. I want you to look at the chart that we put in every one of our schools that say anybody can become the President of the United States if you have the skills, you have the education, or whatever that might take to become the President of the United States, and notice who is not on that chart. How many of you were proud and excited when we had a black president? Raise your hand. How many of you were excited when you found out he was the 6th black president of the United States? How many did you not know who the other 5 presidents are? Raise your hand. You did not know who they are. How many of you would like to know who the other 5 presidents are? Well, you should buy my book that's up here. But the truth of it is, ladies and gentlemen, let me share with you what you have been taught about democracy. All of those 5 other presidents are dead. Please raise your hand if you believe they told the American people that they were black, they would have been elected. Take a good look at every one of your hands. You see, ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't true. Until we allow that to happen, to bring out your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your religion, your being poor or rich or with a disability, that until we begin to have all of those and women on that presidential picture, we have not yet arrived. And until you move over one seat, you might as well be a million miles apart from each other. So today, what you're going to do is you're going to pair it with somebody who you don't know and who's different than you. Now, you can make up whatever difference that might be. And you could also trick me. You could say maybe like this: Mary, we ain't moving, we got good seats. Okay? And you know something? That's what we do. We hang out with our same friends and we think we're getting to know everybody. I would like you to model for this next generation and for yours to take a chance and walk across a room. Pair it with somebody who you don't know, who even maybe somebody who you might be scared to walk up to, have always wanted to meet. What would that be like? And today you're going to do it. And one thing you need to know about this exercise is you're going to do it without saying a single word. And for some of you, that's going to be really hard. For those of you with authority issues, you'll do whatever you want. But what I'd like you to do is to try out today, what would it be like to be quiet and pick someone just with your eyes? Now, I know some of you are going to play a pattern, and that is, I never get picked, and so you're not going to move. You're going to wait for somebody to pick you. What I'd like you to do is take a chance today. Step out. And one thing you're going to learn about this exercise is, if you want to get the right person, you better move fast. Ready? No words at all. Oh, look at her. She's all ready to go. Ready? Begin. Go around the room. Pick someone that you don't know and who's different than you. Someone you don't know, and then sit down next to them. Turn your chair and face them. Turn your total chair and totally turn around and face them. Don't say a word to them yet. Raise your hand if you don't have a partner. Keep it up until you get a partner. Keep it up if you don't have a partner. Sometimes people are right in front of you and you're still not picking them. Now, make sure you're an arm's length away from another pair. An arm's length away from another pair. Do you have a partner? Oh, good. Okay. I thought he was invisible. Okay. Now, no 45-degree angles. Take your chair out of the row and turn and face your partner. Turn that chair around. Okay. Now, take a good look at your partner. I don't know how, my newest film, the students talk about walking into a classroom like this. And everybody looking at that other person from their cliques. Going into the lunchroom, noticing everybody in ethnic groups or their little cliques. Nobody going, hey, come on over here. And I love it when the students said the way they walk into classrooms is, the teacher does like this. I hope you'll all get along. Okay, now turn to page 44. So, ladies and gentlemen, today, and by the way, have you ever gone to a mall and you kind of checking out groups like this? Or maybe you look at them when they're not looking. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you permission to check your partner out. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at their shoes, look at their pants, look at their dress, skirts, take a look at their earrings, hair, nose. Really take a good look. Oh, he's taking his hat off. He wants you to see his fine hair. So take a good look. I'm giving you permission to really look at them. Instead of maybe doing it like this. Martha, come over here, look. Oh my God, that's a big Asian family moving next door. Woo. What are they cooking next door? Ooh, what is that funny smell? Oh my God, this Chinese family has a dog. I wonder if they're going to eat it. All these things you've heard, right? By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I don't eat dogs, just parakeets and cats. I'm just joking. But you will never find out if I do or not unless you do what? Read a book, Google it, or do what else? Follow me home or ask, right? Oh my God, forbid, walk up and find out. Because guess what? Those assumptions will either make you want to meet me or not want to meet me. Those assumptions will decide whether or not you promote me. Think I'm intelligent, dangerous, friendly, intelligent, trustworthy. All of those. And so today what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pretend that I'm a police officer. And I want you to tell me that this person sitting across from you is a suspect. And what I want you to do is this, that this person in front of you has a suspicion about doing something, and I want you to pick out 3 things that you could describe about this person. Make it just 2 things that you can describe about this person, okay? Take a good look. So if it's eyeglasses, it might be dark on top of his head, or dark hair, or whatever that might be, what color, okay? Short, things like this. Then I want you to do is I want you to tell your partner your assumption that you made about them based on that observation. It's a lot like when my first year teaching at Hunters Point, which is a primarily poor black area in San Francisco, California, and a 3rd grader walked up to me. He was a young black kid, only about 8 years old. I mean, not 8 years old. Yeah, about 8, 9 years old. And he went like this. Huh! And I looked at that little boy and I said, not bad, grasshopper. I'll teach you a few more moves after school. But then it got around the whole school that I was a martial arts expert. It was a time of Bruce Lee. I said, well, Bruce is my brother. No. But what ended up is, at first I thought it was funny and I thought it was great. And I thought it was wonderful because the students wanted to get to know me. But then I realized, no, because that's all they saw. They had pigeon-toed me. They had narrowed who I was. And even though stereotypes are positive, they still narrow down who they want you to be. And so I believe that positive and negative stereotypes don't serve us because guess what? I hate math. And I don't double park, I triple park. No, I'm just kidding. But what I like to share is that those stereotypes were not about me, and they might be true, but they're not always true. And I'm emotional, I'm athletic, and ladies and gentlemen, I am not small. When I walk up to somebody who's all my same height, I said, how incredible, you're as tall as me. I don't go, you're as short as me. I am not a small Asian man. All of these things that I heard growing up. So I'd like you to look at your partner, take a good look, figure out 2 things about your partner that you notice. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to tell the one thing you might notice, an assumption that you make about them, okay? And then you're going to ask them, is it true or not? You're going to check it out. And they're going to tell you whether it's true or not and maybe talk to you about it. Then you get to tell them your observation and your assumption about them and check out if it's true or not, okay? I want you to turn your suspicion to curiosity. Okay? She's really into this. Okay. And by the way, suspicion and curiosity are very close sometimes, aren't they? The person who will start off, and by the way, you'll both do number 1, you'll both do number 2, okay? The person who will start off will be the person with the shortest hair. Ready, begin. Anybody know what this is? A Tibetan bowl. It's used by Buddhist monks to listen to the sound of silence. So that's how Simon & Garfunkel got that title. Also, when I used it for 25 years, many corporations now use this bell. It saved my voice when I was teaching for 25 years junior high. just ringing this bell. I remember people used to ask me, how'd you get your kids to come in during lunch, running to your class after all the hormones and all of their sugar? And I said, I used to tell the kids in junior high, you want to know how to get high without drugs? And I'd ring the Tibetan bell and they would go like this. Oh, Mr. Lee, this is really good. But more than that is, I wanted to bring culture in the room so they could see it. Something that was useful. By the way, in a Tibetan bell, when you ring it, you don't hit it fast because that's very sacrilege. The other thing is, if you drop a Tibetan bowl on concrete, it will never ring again. Oh, you're so gullible. Okay, here we go. Another Asian myth. Okay. So, what I'd like you to do is this. I would like you, all the time when I was in college, as a teacher, therapist, which I eventually became, even a filmmaker, not one single teacher ever asked me, how would I do it as a Chinese person? How did I see it differently from my Chinese lens, my Chinese American lens, my Chinese American Cantonese lens, my Chinese Oakland, California lens, my Chinese American Cantonese poor lens growing up in the flatlands of Oakland? No teacher had any curiosity. They even nominated me the most outstanding student teacher in the history of the school, later on the most outstanding graduate. And when I came back, I said, you still don't know me. You only put me in this position of the most outstanding graduate because I did a film. But what about me? And so I wrote these questions that all my life I wish someone had asked me. It's called What You Do Not See. When others look at you, what do they see? Just like that young boy said, must be a karate master. Or maybe when I cross this country and some people hear me talk, I don't know how many times people go like this. Mr. Lee, you speak such good English. Where'd you learn it from? Amazing. Oh, and then when I started to do well in school, Wenhua, with longing eyes, they'd look at me and go, you are a credit to your people. Randy, where are you? Would you mind standing? He's representing all white people today. So Randy, when was the last time you were told you speak such good English? Where'd you learn it from? When was the last time you were told that you are a credit to your people?
2 years ago, but other than that.
You see, in his world and mine were very different, weren't they? He can be born in Belgium. He can be born in Russia. And we could be standing next to each other, and everyone will assume he's an American and I'm not. Where did that come from? How many of you, by a raise your hands, know exactly what I'm talking about? Raise your hand. Yeah. Take a good look. And so, ladies and gentlemen, is when others look at you as a woman, as a gay person, as an older, younger, Latino, black, whatever that is, what do they see? And sometimes you could see it in their eyes, huh? The next one is, what don't they see and why? Woo! Boy. What don't they see and why, huh? What keeps them from seeing those parts of you? And this one, which all my life I wish I could say to someone is, what do I wish that they would see? What do you wish that they would see in you? That they would finally see it without your having to get a PhD. Finally see it in you without you having become the president of the college. Finally even be curious and honor and want to know. We don't even want it. We're scared out of our minds to even ask this president, what was it like growing up to be black? I can hardly wait for his biography after he finishes being the president. All the things he couldn't say. And the next one is if others wanted to see the real you, what do you want or need from them for that to happen? If they really wanted to get to know you, huh? Naomi and I met each other today. All I asked her was her reaction to a film. And then we got deeper, didn't we? And just as we finished, just for less than 6 minutes together, she was almost in tears. I could see it. But every one of my questions was about getting to know you more, wasn't it? Were you going to take the time to truly get to know someone? And I looked at her and I said, you've only been here for 1 year, and you look so tired already. And that's when her tears started to come. The question isn't just that it's been a long day. What were you like when you first came? And what are you like today? What happened in that journey? And what would it take to give you hope again? And that's why that last question is so important, isn't it? The person who's going to answer these questions will be the person this time with the longest hair. You will get 5 full minutes. The other person is not going to ask you any questions, is not going to say anything, is not going to laugh or take notes. They're just going to listen to you. They're going to be very present with you, okay? So the person with the longest hair will answer these questions, okay? Ready? And you're going to answer them honestly. Ready? Begin. Good. Now, if you were the listener, turn and face your partner. And the speaker, look at each other. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Now, if you're the listener, I'd like you to think of 2 or 3 things your partner said that was important to them. Not what was important to you, but what was important to them. I want you to use their first name. So it might go, so Mary, I was really moved, or I was really touched when you said, and by the way, each of you, when you came in here, got a set of a little card. Would you hold that orange card up, please? Please raise your hand if you have it. It's on the floor. Your green one's on the floor. And look at the part that says the art of mindful inquiry. And on that card are all the questions you could ask. Number 1, what I heard you say. By the way, the fastest way to make a connection with somebody is to tell them back what you heard. Can you hear that? So what I heard you say was, and whatever one you pick out, if you can get them to keep on talking, whoo, you're good. Can you hear that? I was on a plane and someone told me how I came to do this work, and I said somebody I knew was died, and that's how I came to do this work, and it was in 1985 in Oakland, California, and he went like this. Oh, I was born in Oakland too. Where? Instead of asking me, oh my God, that must have been so hard, staying with what was important to me, not what was important to him. And the other second question is, tell me more. That's what you call a first date. You can go on a first date and last the whole date. Tell me more. Really, tell me more about that, instead of talking about yourself. The third one is, which I think we're scared of in this country, is what angered you about what happened? And the next one is, what hurt you about it? I do not believe that anger is a primary emotion. I think hurt is. When hurt is unacknowledged or invalidated, it becomes anger. But the only way they will tell you what hurts them is if you're willing to hear the anger and stay there. The next one is what I call the past tense question, which I teach mediation boards all across this country. And when I work with Israelis and Palestinians, skinheads, members of the Ku Klux Klan, people who are screaming, yelling at each other. Even this question I also use when a student put a gun to my head and said, Mr. Lee, I'm going to kill you. And I use these questions. Now, what's familiar is the past tense question. When you see someone good and angry, way beyond what you did, it's probably because you remind them of something in their lives. How did that affect you way back then? And how does it affect you today? And I believe if you've been discriminated on, there's 1,000 unfinished slights that are inside of you, ready to explode. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Raise your hand. Yeah. all that's gone on. And the last one is called, what do you need or want? And I think we use that one so we could skip all the ones above, and that's why we're here today in the year 2014. We still have not allowed people to express the hurt and the anguish of what has happened. So in listening to your partner, reflect back to them what you heard them say, what was important to them. Just name one. And then you can simply go, tell me more about that. Or what angered you about that? What hurt you about it? Use their first name. Ready, begin. Okay, just notice what it stopped, like it's to stop talking when you want to keep going. And by the way, I didn't mean for you to tell your whole life here, okay? How many of you felt like your partner was a good listener? You better say that, huh? So what made your partner a good listener? Anybody, what made your partner a good listener? Yes.
She made eye contact with me, and she nodded as I was saying things, and she smiled.
And she hates it that we're all looking at her now. And by the way, she is very observant. I could tell you that. Yeah. Notice that eye contact is very important. By the way, not every culture likes you to look them in the eye. And by the way, I wrote a thing. If you go onto my website, I wrote a new thing about what happens when someone looks away from you. So you're wondering, is it my breath? Is it my deodorant? Maybe they don't like me. And so I have one that you'll get to see on my, you don't have to write it down. It says, I noticed you looked away when we were talking. I wonder if it was cultural or personal. And I want to know because I want to stay connected and for us to get to know each other. You see how that holds in that there's nothing wrong with them, but it comes from curiosity. And then you also tell them why you want to know because you could stay connected. So do go on my website and take a good look at that one. What else? What else made your partner a good listener?
He heard what I didn't say.
How profound. He heard what he didn't say. He's going to make a fine teacher and therapist someday. And that's a gift, everyone, to notice what they aren't saying. And by the way, all throughout today, that's exactly what I said when I was working with the faculty. Does anybody notice what they didn't say? It was sitting in the room. Yes. Over here, what made your partner a good listener? Would you pass it?
She encouraged me when I'm not confident. She said I'm good, but sometimes I'm inconfident.
Ooh, and what did that do for you?
Yeah, I feel good. I feel like I can do better because of that.
Ooh.
Thank you.
How many of you can see the connection between the two of them now? She was beginning and being with her where she was, not where she wanted her to be. Yeah, it's a real gift. She's living her T-shirt, what it says. Anybody else? What made your partner a good listener? Yes. Would you mind passing this to her, please? There you go.
Amanda, she reflected on something I said and made it like relatable, like to show that she understood what I was saying and like felt the situation I was in. So it was like kind of empathetic listening, reflective.
And that means a lot that your partner is touched by what you said because they can also understand what it must be like. It's a real gift. By the way, it's no mistake that you paired up with this person. Yeah, you're going to find out in just a few moments. I once had two people in an entire room, the only two orphans in the entire room, paired up out of 2,000 people. I even had an African-American man who was an instructor said, I have been stopped 20 times this year, and if I end up getting arrested again, it's going to be violent. And out of 150 people, the man he paired up with was a former policeman. And everybody was crying, was curious what was going on between them, and at the end of the workshop, they were hugging. And the white police officer, who was a former officer, stood up and said, I did stop men that looked black just like you. just because they were black. And it's only today did I realize what it did. And the African American instructor said, all my life I've hoped that one day I could hear that, so that I could know it wasn't me. It wasn't something I did. It was the color of my skin. So now what I'd like you to do is, the other person who has the shortest hair, who thought they were going to get out of here not having to do this, is they are going to answer what we do not see. Honestly. Thank you, Randy. Ready? Begin. Okay, now, if you're the listener, look back at your partner. Don't look at me. Now, you're going to think of 2 or 3 things your partner said that was important to them, not what was important to you. And also, remember, I gave you a whole set of questions. I don't know how many people are scared to ask, so what angered you about that? What hurt you about it? I believe this country is deathly scared of emotions. So it's not about reiterating the facts, but are you open to hearing the tears and the anguish and the rage of what happens? And just because someone's angry does not mean that they're being violent or out of control. It just means, boy, did you get lucky that they're willing to tell you today. Ready, begin. This is, your name again is?
Satvika.
Satvika is my newest Buddhist intern. What she doesn't know is at the end of the workshop, we will be shaving her hair. Okay. Let's give her a hand. All right, once again, how many of you thought your partner was a good listener? Ooh, what made your partner a good listener? What made your partner, yes? Ooh. She still is. Even looking at her, she's still looking right at you. By the way, nonverbals and how you're relating is 60% of your communication. If you look detached, far away, doesn't matter what you say, the person's not going to feel connected to you. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
So my partner was 7, and I like that she had an instance where we kind of continued the exercise. Not something that she didn't want to.
Did you appreciate it that she noticed that?
Yeah.
Take a good look at it for them, everyone. See, it isn't just that she said she was sorry, but about what? When people tell me I'm really sorry, I go, sorry about what? I really understand what you're going through. What do you understand? Those are harder, isn't it? Because sometimes I think we say we're sorry so they get out of the room. You ever hear this one? Let's just agree to be different. What that means is we are never going to talk again. The hard one is we're going to stay in the room so I can hear you and you can hear me. That's the hard work, isn't it? Anybody else? What made your partner a good listener? Yes.
What made Misty a good listener is that she combined things that I spoke about, and then she asked the right question.
Ooh, you're going to make a fine therapist someday. Can you hear that? What it means for him to be able to find a thread to connect things. That's a really compassionate listener who stays there. Notice what it means for him to have someone be able to make that connection. And you had a hand over here, something? Yeah.
Jacob, when I spoke with him, he always wanted more to make sure he was clearly understanding what I was saying.
Jacob, I want you to see what that means to him. Because the subtext, ladies and gentlemen, is he may have conversations where no one wants to know anything more. And wanting to know more may mean a lot to him. Anyone else? Yes. Oops, sorry.
Clarifying questions, as Dean Patterson said. She asked clarifying questions, and she would allow me to reiterate, and she showed some empathy in terms of her body language, and also she didn't manifest in a nuanced way de facto guilt. Oftentimes when these questions are brought up, like within many of your movies, there's a reaction. This reaction is based on a lot of guilt and the turmoil that's going on inside with the individual. I didn't notice any of that within this young lady.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I believe sometimes we get stuck in shame and guilt. What I'd like to tell you as a therapist is good. Not necessarily that you get stuck in it, but that shame and guilt are healthy. But when you get stuck in it and stay in it, that's where it becomes unhealthy. When you begin to use it so you don't have to talk or move on and continue the relationship, that is where it gets stuck. The difference between shame and guilt, shame is when you think all of you is bad. Guilt is one thing that's going on. When I ask people who are from the minorities, do you want the majority to stay in guilt and shame? Absolutely not. But I do want you to change, is what they say. I do want you to take responsibility. Yes. What did you get? What made her a good listener?
I wanted the real, how she, what made her a great listener is that when I told her what I wanted others to see in me, she teared up. I talked about some really deep things. And in spite of a language difference, I could see that she was empathic. Good job.
It's called the language of the heart. Yeah. And by the way, you don't have to catch every word. Sometimes it's just the right ones that you touch. Anyone else? Someone had their hand up.
So I thought Lizzie was a really great listener because she asked me why. And no one's ever really asked me that before. And I think that one little word meant a lot to me.
How many of you heard what she said? Just asking me why. By the way, she's still sitting with what that meant to her. Tell me why. Did you hear what she said? No one has ever asked me that. Tell me why it angered you. Tell me why it hurt you. Those are simple ones, aren't they? And yet, we seldom ask them. Anybody else? What made your partner a good listener?
So Kristen was a really good listener because I have a tendency when I'm talking with people to look down and away. And every time that I looked back up, she was looking right at me.
Yeah.
And that kind of attention like really anchored the conversation, the listening, and the exchange between us.
Yeah. Whenever I work with folks that are looking up on the ceiling when they're talking or looking on the floor, that's where I look too. I go like this. And by the way, I also work with therapists, social workers, police officers, not to be writing when someone's telling you their story, but to be right in front of them. How many of you today were really appreciative that you got to meet this person? Raise your hand. That if I had just done a simple keynote, you would never have met this beautiful person. Can you hear that? How many of you today would be willing to hang out and spend some time with this person? Raise your hand. You better say that, huh? That today you could get their email addresses, you could find out where they are on this campus and stay connected. You could even go into their neighborhoods. Not just share a meal, but actually have stories and share about this is just the tip of the iceberg of their lives. You see, when I taught special ed, a lot of the students would come up to my room and go, particularly students of color, and go, "We want to be in your class." I said, "You're not even special ed." No, we heard you're a really good teacher." And I said, "How do you know I'm a good teacher?" And the students would say, "Because, Mr. Lee, as we look in your room when you're gone, at lunch and after school, we walk into your room, and we see all the pictures of your friends, and they look like us. But one more thing, Mr. Lee, is you're the only teacher that eats lunch with all the kids when it's not even your supervision day. And one thing more, Mr. Lee, is we see you after school pile all the kids in your little Volkswagen and you bring them up the hill and treat them to drinks. That's why we want to be in your class." No. And by the way, in my second year of teaching, my first year of teaching, a student walked up to me and said, "Mr. Lee, you're a racist." And I said, "Really? Tell me more." And he said, "Mr. Lee, you have a telephone in your room." I said, "Yeah." "Well, when kids are bad, you call our parents." I said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, we noticed that when you have Asian kids, you give them 3 warnings. When you have black kids, you give them 2. And I said, "I never noticed that. I think it's because when I was growing up, I was told that black kids act out more than Asian kids. And you know something? I think it entered into the way I saw you. And I'm going to look at that. And you Asian kids, why didn't you say anything?" And they looked at me and they said, "Well, we thought you liked us better." I said, "Well, things are changing." And then it got around the whole school that Mr. Lee said he was a racist, he owned it, and he did something about it. You see, ladies and gentlemen, I owned it, took responsibility, and I changed. Today, none of you died talking about what people don't see. And I encourage you from here on, in your classes, say, can we talk to each other? Can we get to know each other? Let's go have lunch together so we can get to know each other. Let's go around the room as I did today with the faculty. And as they said to me, as I had lunch with the faculty today, or some of them, they said, each member is going to go around and tell you what they do. And I said, no, 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 no. I want each faculty member not to tell me what they do. I want you to tell me one thing that's important about you, that you would like me to know about you. Oh, by the time we finished, people were so moved how it was so different. Why? Because all of my life, I wanted someone to ask me that too. Tell me one thing about yourself that is special about you. Not my position, not my fame, but who I was. And today, ladies and gentlemen, you got to be seen. You got to be valued. And you made a new friend. And may you continue to have that journey with each other. And to me, that is what it means to say that the world is all around us. I thank you.
Okay, we need to give him another applause because this has been wonderful. I knew that what you would do with us would be different. I knew that I would be grateful for it. And I'm mainly glad that even though President Snyder couldn't stay till the very end, that she was here and got to see a different kind of Power of Diversity lecture. So I thank you for that. I have a gift for you. This is what I'm giving you, but I also want to give you a hug.
And that's the best gift. And before I forget, two people have won the film. One is a blank paper. One person wrote Jackie. Didn't put a last name. Good. Why don't you come on up? Put your last name too. And the next person who won is Sylvia. Sylvia
While they're getting their gifts, he's making gifts available for you to view. His books are available and DVDs are available to view, but you have to purchase them through Stir Fry Consulting. So they're not here in the back as we do sometimes. But there is a discount, am I correct?
It's 50% off. And also, if you find that you can't afford even the 50% off, simply call our company and you could offer us your first one. One woman said you could have them, but no, we will work with you so that you can't afford it. The most important thing is that you use it.
Okay, so there will be cookies and punch in the back, right outside the door. We thank you all for coming and have a good semester.
Everybody, I had one last thing to ask of you. Just to let you know, how many of you enjoyed today? Raise your hand. How many of you would like to imagine ever doing this around the world, doing diversity training? We have a certification program for the very first time. It started last October. By the way, when you see my film tonight, half the cast is becoming certified to do this all over the country and the world. This was my last film in 20 years. This is my last one. I'm going to be starting a new thing around the country, town hall meetings. One of them is going to begin in Ferguson, Missouri, in which we are going to show my film. It's called A National Conversation on Race. People are going to watch my films. They're going to pair up with people in groups of 10, and then they're going to be asked to have all 10 people meet in their homes once a month for 1 year to have this dialogue. Why do I want them to meet once a month for 1 year? Because not to do it because someone got killed or murdered or shot somebody, but to bring the world into our homes so our children can see us having peaceful conversations, so we can get to know each other. And so if you would like to be part of that, we have a certification program. It's a sliding scale. I need young people to be in this film. I need faculty members and staff folks to be in it. I want to have one in every city in this country so we can let people know that we can change the course of this country. Each of us can make a difference. President Barack Obama was absolutely right. I cannot do it by myself. You alone can change the world when you decide to and make that choice each and every day of your lives. Thank you, everyone.